You know when you meet someone and they swear that all of their exes were psychos, and then you slowly realize that, oh, wait, I'm talking to the person who was the problem in the relationship? Unrelatedly, the Young Turks. And I'm going to make this as brief as possible because there are a million far more important and pressing things going on right now. As you know, actual fascism. But to make it brief, Cenk Uygur, the head of TYT, recently hath forboten me from appearing on any TYT shows because, in part, I said that him capitulating to right-wing framing on many issues meant he was, quote, acting like a bitch. And the truth is, he was, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But first, some backstory. So I have been a contractor at TYT for 10 years now, appearing on all of the shows as a fill-in host, as a guest host during election coverage, on the TYT main show, on the Damage Report, and on Indisputable, along with a lot of other shows. I have always hopped on at the last minute, always helped out in a pinch. I guest host last minute, and yes, I was paid. And if you're watching this and you are a TYT contributor and you are not getting paid, stop going on TYT until you do. I've never been a full-time employee, never got healthcare, never got maternity leave when I had my child. But back in 2018, I was hired for a 6-month contract to pilot a show for $3,000 a month. Then, however, their funding bottomed out and I was let go. And they broke their contract. My reps at the time thought I should sue to get the full 6 months of payment and work that I was owed, but I didn't because I told them that TYT was good people and I wanted to maintain my relationship, and I did. That is until things started to turn for TYT politically. And this started happening around the pandemic. Around the pandemic, Anna Kasparian seemed to become focused on the issue of homelessness, especially in a city that I used to call home, which is San Francisco. She had an objectively scary experience with an unhoused person, and in fact, I went back to see when she told her audience about this. And I do remember the day that Anna told the story on air. In fact, I was also on after she told that story, but I didn't hear it at the time. It was within an interview that she was doing with an author by the name of Michael Shellenberger, who had written the book San Francisco, Why Progressives Are Ruining Cities. Instead of focusing on housing market prices, on how homelessness often leads to things like addiction and mental illness, Shellenberger focuses on Democrats who thinks go too easy on the unhoused. I remember that I jumped onto the show right after he got off, after that interview, and the TYT audience was really pissed because they felt like the framing and the platforming of someone like Shellenberger was a disservice to the issue of homelessness, mental illness, and addiction. Anna apparently took that as the chat downplaying what happened to her rather than how the issues were presented. She's since gone on right-wing shows like Glenn Beck, Piers Morgan, and Jillian Michaels, among others, to retell this story and use it as rationale for why she feels the left left her, that maybe she's never been left, why she's politically homeless, or, politically unhoused. Since then, she's gone on to cover critical stories from a right-wing framing, like the alleged takeovers of buildings by Venezuelan gangs in Aurora, Colorado, like the mentally ill, undocumented man in Los Angeles who was found lighting fires, but who was not responsible for the wildfires themselves in January. Throwing progressive mayors like Brandon Johnson of Chicago under the bus because he listens to teachers too much. Anna's actually really skilled at what she does, so the laziness with which she treats these stories really just stands out all the more. Let me give you some backstory, though, of Anna and my friendship. We've never been close, despite a hike, a dinner, and the time that she generously gave me a gift for my new baby and then explained to me that she was going to debate Ben Shapiro because, in her words, she, quote, felt she could win over his audience. 2 moments with Anna stand out for me in terms of how I've always treated her. In 2016, I was working with AJ Plus and we were at the RNC. I had just started going on TYT a little bit and meeting everyone. And TYT was there, and Anna was there, and she was frustrated because she hadn't been booked on many appearances on camera, and instead a panel of men mostly clogged up the day. I stood next to her and told her how annoying that was and just tried to build her up in solidarity. Then in 2019, we went out to lunch in Los Angeles at an awesome spot that she knew of. And Anna confided to me that she was frustrated about leadership at TYT. How she wasn't involved in day-to-day decision-making, and how Cenk viewed her more as a kid sister rather than a co-equal partner. And at the time, she wanted to branch out on her own and do videos on a new channel. I implored her at that moment to stay. I said that it's always women that tend to walk away from organizations, even when they've helped build them up to the point that they're at. I told her to fight for more of a decision-making role and to not walk away. And she did. And it looks like the editorial decisions that we see being made at TYT are in part because she now has the reins. In a way, I'm proud of her, even if I don't like the coverage. In November of last year, in an effort to understand where Anna was coming from and why she was doing what she was doing, I invited her to come on my show, The Bitchuation Room. She agreed, but also told me that she had a family emergency that sounded bad, and I told her to not worry and that we would find a time in the new year. That week, she went on Glenn Beck's show, and it kind of puzzled me, to be honest. She obviously now is likely not going to come on my show, in part because Cenk did. And I wanted to talk to him about his own very cordial conversations with the right since the election or re-election of Donald Trump, in which he tells various figures, from Charlie Kirk to Patrick Bet-David to Tim Pool to RFK Jr. lover, again, Jillian Michaels, about how he agrees that the left is often cruel and too extreme, saying that at a time where people are literally being disappeared for their political beliefs by this right-wing agenda. Anyone can watch the discussion. I put it in the link below, and it's honestly just a really disturbing portrait of his very with me or against me mentality. I even foreshadowed in the video the idea that he would boot me from TYT one day, and he did. It was also staggering how much he was shadowboxing with me as some kind of stand-in for the max left that has lost their minds. In that video, he laughed at me for suggesting that Trump would create detention camps. After the discussion in December, TYT main show never asked me back on. And then when I made a harmless little video pointing out that yes, there are detention camps, that seemed to be one of the final straws. Personally, Cenk and I were never close. In 2022, I think we went out to lunch and he asked me if I wanted to work with TYT full-time. And it gave me pause. Look, I work with a number of outlets. I am a stand-up comedian. I value my free time, and I have my own show. I wanted time to do those things, but also I pay through the nose for things like healthcare, and a little bit of job stability would be amazing. I also know how hard the company works people who work there, and I know how it treated the union drive. I also know how much they deny full-time employees bonuses every year, even when they're delivering millions of views. I know that they're kind of cheap, and Cenk usually doesn't like it when people negotiate with him. So I said, sure, I want to work for TYT full-time, but it depends on the offer, which, by the way, you should always ask for an offer before you pledge loyalty to anyone or any company. An offer never came, because in my view, loyalty wasn't a given. All this to say, I'm not sad to leave TYT behind, especially now, with, of course, the exception of the damage report with John Iadarola, who I care about and I think is so talented. But we live in a time of right-wing monsters, authoritarians, and yes, fascists. And anyone capitulating to their framework about human rights, about policing, around militarism, is not serious about liberation or democracy. Please, never watch anyone who can't admit when they're wrong. Never watch anyone who tells you that their strategy is right and that they are the way, the truth, the light. Never listen to anyone who doesn't have a sense of humor when they are acting like a bitch. I am one person with a scrappy YouTube channel who pieces together my annual living. I have a fraction of the following of TYT, which is $1 million media company. The idea that they choose to focus on me or other leftist creators in their field is honestly really disheartening and very revealing. Look, I wish the best for the people of TYT, but as for the main hosts, I kind of just wish them peace, because it's been a long, long road with many skeletons in many closets, and honestly, I don't think they know where that road is going. And it's going to be really sad when they respond to this video or try to smear me as if there weren't so many other pressing things to talk about. But I just had to get it off my chest, explain to you what's going on, and tell you that I am the host of the Bitchuation Room podcast and also America Unhinged on Zateo. And you can also catch me doing live comedy, hopefully in a city near you. Until then, later.